You are wrong about pitching Image Comics. Elsewhere in the internet, my reaction to the pitching Image Comics discourse was, well, let's let Luke say it. Lots of misinformation, told with complete confidence. And the secret is, there's no secret. I broke into comics through Image with The Strange Town of Luther Strode. More specifically, I broke into comics by pitching Image through their submissions email and by following the instructions on their websites. That's it. Like I said, the secret is, there's no secret. Well, aside from attach yourself like a remora to a generational talent like Trad Moore, but I'm not sure that's a recipe that can be replicated. But since I'm cooking here, I'm going to go through some of the most common misconceptions. First, though, is the basics. What Image actually is, and yes, people get that wrong. The problem, if you want to call it that, is that Image the company is an umbrella for a couple of different, mostly autonomous publishers. There's Skybound, which is Robert Kirkman's label. There's Shadowline, which is Valentino's, Top Cow, etc. While these are all Image, they all have different rules for pitching, and when people are talking about Image Comics generally, they actually mean Image Central, the beast that publishes Saga, Radiant Black, etc. So when I'm talking about pitching Image Comics, it's also what I mean. And again, there really isn't a secret. They ask for 5 completed pages, a cover, and a pitch. They are not lying. You can get picked up that way. You almost certainly won't, but you can. More on that in a bit. Misconceptions. Industry connections. Isn't to say being in the industry or knowing something might not help, but it's not necessary and it's not any kind of guarantee. I've published 4 series at Image, but I've pitched them, a dozen? Maybe more. No, definitely more, but I can't begin to keep track. Point being, I have more Image books than many, and they seem to like me, and I don't get an automatic green light, even if the team is all people who've done books for Image before. Ultimately, they just need to like the book. A fully finished book. Probably doesn't hurt to have this because one of the major risks of picking someone out of the submissions email is they might not actually be able to finish a book. And that does happen. Getting a book picked up is hard. Getting a book on shelves is even harder. There are editors you can pitch. There aren't. Image Central doesn't edit books. You can pitch them an idea. No, you can't. I can't. Ed Brubaker or Brian K. Vaughan maybe can, but we're not them. You need to pitch them a book. While the book doesn't need to be finished, see above, it does need to have the pieces in place. Writer, art team, etc. So, what do you need? Like I said, cover, 5 pages, pitch. But while there are no secrets, there is advice. Art is paramount. Your art needs to be as good or better than the stuff they're publishing. Yes, this is subjective, but learning to evaluate art with a critical eye is a skill you absolutely should pick up. Finding artists who are good enough is hard. It was hard when I broke in, but at least then there was DeviantArt and it was a good place to go. You need a professional letterer. I'm going to emphasize this because you're probably going to ignore it. A lot of people think they can letter their stuff themselves, and they're usually wrong. And while the difference good lettering can make is subtle, it's important. Just find someone who has worked out a bunch of professional books and get them on board. Not that expensive. Most people use the first 5 pages as their pitch, and this is a good policy. If you're objecting that your first 5 pages aren't a great introduction to your book, well, that's a problem. There's something to be said for openings that don't do this, but you're trying to break in. The first 5 pages are also what's going to be used in previews for your book if you do get picked up, so it's good policy for these pages to actually give a good sense of what your book is about. The Strange Town of Luther Strode opens with a 3-page flash forward showing the aftermath of a very bloody fight scene, where we get a sense of Luther's talents before cutting back to the start of the story, where we get to see Luther as a normal nerd before this all started, just hanging out with his best friend. That opening is not an accident. The first 3 pages are designed to be attention-getting, and without context, they provide a mystery to hook people. By then cutting back to what Luther used to be, it sets up a bunch of questions about how a normal kid turned into a muscle-bound murder machine. It also, and yes, I'm at dire risk of backpatting here, sets up the tone of the book, a mix of horror, action, comedy, and tragedy. Since this was intentional on my part, I knew we'd only have those 5 pages to get that across. First 5 pages are effectively a trailer for the book. And honestly, if there's one tip I can give you, it's this. Make those 5 pages do as much work as you can. Make sure they are selling the book, make sure they represent the book. If we open Luther with 5 pages of Luther and Pete just talk, that might be fun, but it doesn't sell what's special about the book or tell you what the book actually is. Those 5 pages aren't all you need, but if you don't nail them, the odds of the rest of your pitch mattering are slim to none. The book and the pages are your chance to show what the book is and what matters most. But the pitch document does matter. I have a whole long-ass article on this, which you can get for subscribing to my newsletter below, but I'll try to sum it up here relatively briefly. Remember, pitch doc is a sales document. You need to be highlighting what is cool about your book and why it needs to be published. So the pitch shouldn't be a Wikipedia entry about a potential book, it should be a trailer for the actual book. However, and I know a good chunk of you are thinking this, don't take that too literally and try to leave out the ending or important bits and attempt to hook the publisher into wanting to read more. Tell them the whole story. But you do need to be brief. None of my actual pitches are more than 2 pages, and lots of them are less. My general recommendation is that you need to get to the point where you can tell the full story in 3 forms: 1 sentence, 1 paragraph, and 1 page. If you're doing a mini-series, just summarize the whole story. If it's meant to be ongoing, summarize the first arc in detail, then give 2 or 3 sentences to each of the arcs within reason. Spread was meant to go indefinitely, but we did briefs on about 5 arcs for the pitch, not all of which made it to the finished book, by the way. Like I said, the secret is there's no secrets. There's skill, there's no secrets. Put together the best team, the best book, and the best pitch you can, send it in into submissions@imagecomics.com, and start work on the next thing. Good luck, and if this video was useful or at least kind of entertaining, give us a like, hit the subscribe button, or check us out at deathercomics.com.